Serena. She died at age 4 of scarlet fever. His mother, Fanny, a very typical, hardworking Mennonite lady. His father, Henry, a farmer, but not your typical farmer. Henry's what we call a rainbow chaser. He loved to travel. He loved to invent things. He had great ideas. He just never got his invention long enough to make money. Milton grew up in a very poor, unstable home environment. So poor that by the age of 12, the Hersheys had moved, Milton was 12, the Hersheys had moved him. I said that one day, and they said, you mean his parents were only 12? I said, no, they didn't. They moved around to several different locations in the area. Milton had attended 7 different one-room schoolhouses. So at 12, he drops out of school and starts working. At the age of 15, his mother found him a job as an apprentice to a candy maker by the name of Joseph Royer over in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's about 25 miles southeast of here. Milton served a 4-year apprenticeship. At the age of 19, decided he was ready to start his own candy business, so he moved to Philadelphia. I'll tell you what happened to him in Philadelphia in a moment. If you look to your left, you're getting your first view of the largest chocolate factory in the world, Hershey Chocolate USA. You will see that factory several times on the trolley tour. Milton built his factory right there for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you're going to make milk chocolate, you need lots of milk. Yeah, he built his factory in the center of the Pennsylvania dairy country. John told me the only reason he did that was so he wouldn't have to move the milk so far, which would have been utterly ridiculous. This is a tough crowd. The fact is, it takes about 50,000 cows a day to produce enough milk for just 1 day of chocolate making in our town. The second reason he built here was limestone. There were a lot of quarries that gave him a very inexpensive building material to use. You'll see a lot of limestone structures throughout our tour. We're waiting to turn on to Chocolate Avenue up here, our main street. If you look out and up, you'll see our famous Hershey Kiss street lights. There they are. 128 of them line Chocolate Avenue, alternating between wrapped and unwrapped. The Kiss lights were installed in 1963. Now these aren't the original lights. These are new. They were just put up about 2 months ago. John said they put these up because the original ones had all melted. He also said they're the only diet kisses Hershey has ever made. Said they made them out of light chocolate. If one burns out, it's dark chocolate. If you steal it, it's hot chocolate. And the jokes don't get any better. Bear with me. Over here on your right is the community center that Mr. Hershey gave to our town during the Depression as a cultural center. This is still the town's cultural center today. It houses a beautiful 1900-seat Hershey Broadway-style theater. If the show tour's off Broadway, it always stops in Hershey. If there are seats available, you can go in there tonight and see Memphis is in town. This thing idling fast or what's that? Over here on your left, a long view of the factory, 2.2 million square feet of floor space, wrapping 1,500 Hershey bars a minute. 33 million Hershey Kisses in there a day. That's not our only factory. We'll talk about the others later. Let's go back to Mr. Hershey. He went to work in Philadelphia with his own factory. The year was 1876. Our country was celebrating our 100th anniversary there. But after struggling for 6 years with extremely high sugar bills, his business in Philadelphia failed. He then headed out to Denver, Colorado. His father had gone there to try to make a fortune in silver mining. Milton didn't want to mine silver. He went to work for a candy maker in Denver who taught him to add fresh milk to the candy to make them chewier, tastier, and longer lasting. You know what the candies were? Caramels, yeah. Most people don't know it. Milton first became successful in caramels. He took the idea of fresh milk and went to Chicago. He didn't make it. Down to New Orleans. He didn't make it. Then he went back to New York City. He didn't make it. High sugar bills. He now has 4 failures. Bankrupt, penniless. Headed home to Lancaster, but convinced his Aunt Mattie to mortgage one of her homes for $700. And And he took that money and started his 5th candy company, the Lancaster Caramel Company. And it wasn't long before those sugar bills were plaguing him again. In fact, Milton was so close to failing that just within days of the bank foreclosing on his Aunt Mattie's house, you know what happened? President Obama bailed him out.
Yes.
I think they believe me. And they're all thinking, now wait a minute, Obama was not around when Milton was around. No, okay. The bank was ready to take everything. Just a few days before the bank processed the papers, Milton received an order for his candies. They were called Crystal A caramels. The order came to him from England. An Englishman had been here and eaten his caramels. He loved them. When he returned to England, he gave Mr. Hershey an order that was so large. When Milton filled it, shipped it to England, and received payment, it took him completely out of debt, and he finally started making money in the candy business. The reason was, England said, we'll take every Crystal A caramel your factory can produce and ship to us. He couldn't give them away in the States, and he wondered why would the English want so many. He discovered they were coating his caramels in chocolate. So Milton said, I wonder if I can do that. Thinking about it. In 1893, he was in Chicago attending the Columbian Exposition. It was like a World's Fair. There was a gentleman there from Dresden, Germany, who had chocolate rolling equipment on display. Mr. Hershey knew what the equipment was. He purchased it all, loaded it up, shipped it to Lancaster, and now produce his own chocolate, coat his own caramels. There wasn't milk chocolate. He hadn't discovered that yet. But it was a dark chocolate. We believe much like the special dark Hershey has today. We're going to let you have some of that in the form of our special dark kiss. Now, ma'am, I'll give you this. You can take a kiss, pass the basket behind you, bring it over to this side in the back, and up this way you'll learn the routine real fast. We do ask that you kindly hang on to your wrappers. You can toss them in the trash can up here when you exit the trolley. Well, Milton's sales are now doing well. In 1896, as he was traveling throughout the country, checking on candy sales along the way, he stepped inside a little candy shop up in Jamestown, New York. And around behind that candy counter, he laid eyes on the most beautiful auburn-haired Irish Catholic lass he had ever seen. Her name was Catherine Elizabeth Sweeney. The story goes they fell in love at first sight. Must be true, because 2 years later, in 1898, he married that young lady in the rectory of St. Pat's Cathedral in New York City. He called her Kitty until her death, 17 years later. We'll call her Kitty throughout the tour. Returning to Lancaster, Milton had made his fortune in caramels, and at the turn of the century, he sold that now successful Lancaster Caramel Company to his largest competitor, the American Caramel Company of Philadelphia, for $1 million. And in 1903, Milton and Kitty took their money and they came here to the Dairy Church area. Now, I didn't say Hershey, I said Dairy Church. I'll explain Dairy Church to you later in the tour. They started building the largest chocolate factory in the world, and the rest is history. There's a great piece of history on your right. This is the homestead where Milton was born. Take a look at the center section. It is the original structure made of limestone. This was an 87-acre farm that set out here in the country, built by his great-grandfather Isaac Hershey in 1826. The farm was handed down through the generations. Milton's father Henry inherited the farm. He could not afford it. He would up and leave and chase a rainbow. He lost the farm due to family debt. It was sold. Milton was about 9 years of age when the Hersheys moved from here. But in 1897, his birthplace came up for sale. He returned here and purchased it from the Levi Gingrich family. They're actually ancestors of Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. The Gingrich family had built the wings on either side, so it looked pretty much like that main structure there when Milton got it back in 1899, or 97. His father Henry lived here till he died. Milton and Kitty lived here till the mansion was completed in 1908. We'll show you the mansion later in the tour. And in 1910, this was the first student home of the Hershey Industrial School. Now you know it as the Milton Hershey School today. We're on the campus of the private school, over 10,000 acres of property. This is a residential school. When students enroll here, they live in student homes. We have over 150 student homes on the campus throughout the community. Each home will hold about 10 to 14 students and a set of house parents. They are children of the same gender and a married couple living in each home. I'll tell you a lot more about the school. I'll show you some more student homes in a little bit. It's not a student home today, it is the home of the president.